Welcome to Wednesday Wisdom with Mazi Mutafa, where we break down my journey building and sustaining an impactful nonprofit in Washington, D.C. I'm Mazi Mutafa, Executive Director of Words Beats and Life. And every Wednesday, as close to 4 o'clock as I can, uh, I'm going to join you live right here on our YouTube channel to share experiences, answer your questions from my experience, and build a set of guiding ideas grounded in culture, creativity, and community. I'm not here to give you the answers, just my own experience, for better and for worse. I should warn you that very few of my friends and peers take my advice, so proceed at your own risk. I have a phrase I love to live by, which is everyone has something to say, but not everything that anyone has to say is always worth listening to. So take what's good for you and reject what doesn't feel right. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you never miss a new episode. It helps us grow our community on this platform and amplify our work in arts education, creative employment, cultural diplomacy, centering marginalized voices, and promoting the culture of hip hop. I expect each episode to be around 20 minutes long. So if you can join us, please do. If we make it to 10 episodes, maybe we have something here. But if you got questions about nonprofit leadership, fundraising, youth programming, or how to use hip hop to change lives, drop it in the chat. I respond live in real time. This space is for you. So today I want to talk about, when I was putting together my plan for this episode of the show, I was thinking, what should I talk about? And I'll be honest, at first I was going to talk about nuts and bolts of starting a nonprofit, like how to actually fill out your paperwork, articles of incorporation, the kind of basics, the how-tos of doing nonprofit creation, like the literal paperwork business side of it. And I'm going to do that on a future episode, but I actually thought I would have a more fun conversation around a topic that all of my friends disagreed with the strategy that we're currently implementing that I think is being far more successful than even I anticipated, which is focused around how to build a board of directors. So what is a board of directors in the nonprofit structure? So for all intents and purposes, though I'm a co-founder of the organization, the board of directors are my bosses. They're people who are volunteers who decide to bring their expertise and experience and ideally relationships to the table to be able to help advance the mission of the charity, right? And like all businesses or all relationships, nonprofit businesses and boards of directors have life cycles. That the way that people come into your organization or when they come into the organization has a lot to do with what it is they think they have to contribute. And so in preparation for this, I was looking like what are the traditional descriptions of a life cycle of a board. And there was a founding board, there's a governing board, and then there is this idea of a sustaining board. So these people, so most founders, when they start a nonprofit, they call that a friends and family board. And the reason why they call it friends and family is because the people that are usually willing to join the board of a brand new nonprofit are people that are the friends and the family of board members. Now that can be, it's usually used as a derogatory term, but the reality is that your friends and your family, I know that the very first donors to Words Beats in Life were all my friends. They're people I went to college with who decided that they had seen the kind of leader I'd been in undergrad and believed that there was value in this nonprofit I was creating. Some of those folks joined our board. And the thing is that because I started this fresh out of college, they're all young professionals, people just beginning their careers. Some of those people have gone on to be judges, have gone on to become entrepreneurs, have gone on to do all kinds of things that they weren't doing then. But what they were doing was being basically my counselors, offering me advice and guidance in those early stages. And that was really important because when we had no money and no programming, advice was really valuable because we didn't have to pay bills. And the ways in which people could bring their own perspective to how we might consider doing X, Y, and Z was just as valuable as the dollars that future boards would bring. I like to say that the second board after friends and family is really more of a young professional. Though I said my friends were young professionals, They actually brought other people who were also young professionals who weren't my friends, who really believed in the mission of the organization. And it's important that you have a system in place when these people come in. The people that are not friends and family, it's kind of like if you think about your own house, depending on your family. Um, you might be less apt to be worried about, air conditioning being broken at your house for your family than you would for strangers. Because families coming over because they want to be with you. Strangers are coming over because they want to see your house and da da da. So the idea that young professionals, they're looking to add something to their resume. They're looking to contribute what it is that they know in the community that they now work in and maybe they live in. And so thinking about what kind of systems you need to have in place in order to be able to engage those young professionals is critical during the friends and family board stage. That's a way that those friends and family can be especially helpful because they're going to be honest about what it is that they need and what it is that they know and what it is they need to know as you're working to build systems. One of the first things we did was create a board member letter of agreement from the very beginning because we wanted to, even though people were volunteers, we wanted them to take it seriously and to know what it is that they were getting into. So it was critical that we had a board member letter of agreement that detailed how often we were meeting, how much we hoped that they would be able to raise or contribute, when committees would operate and what their obligations were to those committees and how they would represent the organization to the larger community, friends and family and professionals. And so being able to detail those things made it possible for those young professionals not only to feel like they were in something more formal, but to actually be in something more formal. So take advantage of the opportunity to have a friends and family board because they'll, especially if they're going to be honest with you about what's missing and you're able to listen because you know that they love you and care about what it is you're doing, it's going to make it easier for you to transition into what I'm describing as a young professional board. After the young professional board, then you have the do-gooder board. The do-gooders are people who don't really know what to do, but want to do something good. And joining your board is a way to be able to do that. They don't necessarily come to the board because they have previous board experience or they love to fundraise or they've got a giant network of people that they believe can volunteer within the work. They just want to do some good. And they're different than the young professionals because the young professionals are really doing this because they want to put it on their resume on some levels, genuinely want to give back. But the do-gooder wants to not just put it on their resume, but wants to show up and be able to give you insights into challenges that you might not necessarily be thinking about at the moment. The biggest difference between the young professional board and the do-gooder board is the do-gooder just wants to do good, but isn't necessarily good at anything that you need. And that's important for you to understand that if you're at the phase where you just have people who are like, I just want to do something in the community and your organization really matters. Can I join your board? Depending on where you are in your life cycle, they might be a great addition because one of the things that they're going to do is show up at events. They're going to be the people that bring their friends because they want to actually show folks in their network that they're doing good in the community. And so they're going to be able to help amplify your work, your mission, etc. But they're not necessarily going to bring a ton of skills. And it's important for you to know that because early on in the founding of most nonprofits, people get really frustrated with their do-gooder board because they're like, how come these people want to do good, but they're not bringing any dollars to the table? They're not bringing any sponsors to the table. They're not bringing all these things that you as the founder believe that you need, but they're bringing what it is that they have, their intention to do good. And the truth is, if they do not just good, but do well, they will help to further develop the infrastructure for your organization. They will ask critical questions that didn't occur to your friends and family board, didn't occur to your young professionals board, because each of them had a different vantage point of what it is that you're doing. Do-gooders are also oftentimes older folks. And I mean, by older, I don't mean like old. I just mean older than young professionals who have some seasoned experience, some networks to be able to tap into, but they don't necessarily feel comfortable tapping into their networks to do good. They feel comfortable tapping into their networks to get people to come to things. So if you're doing free public facing events, do-gooder boards will help get people at your events. And so understand that that's the role that they play. I would say after the do-gooder board comes the professional board. And by professional, I mean, now you've ideally developed something of a track record as an organization. You have some of the infrastructure in place. You have a reputation that those do-gooders have been talking you up about in the community. And now there are people who have skills, whether those are things like fundraising or marketing, HR, et cetera. Now there's a structure for them to come in and contribute their knowledge to. You are very unlikely to get to the professional board without these other three iterations of board members, because it's those first three that are going to help build the infrastructure that makes it so the young professional can come in and get to work. And by get to work, I don't mean literally get to work. I mean, you're able to do things like look for board members who have specific skills that you don't have as an organization. We had a fundraising committee before we ever had a fundraising professional on our board. And the fundraising committee has often been made up of people who are fundraisers in their professional life, who want to use those skills to be able to advance the missions of organizations who do work they believe in, but they don't need to get paid for it. Their reward is being able to see the growth happen. I can think about folks like Jose Dominguez, who was one of our very first grant officers when he worked at the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities, who many years later, I think around year number 18 or 19, joined our board of directors. He is a fundraising professional. He does capacity building trainings and strategic planning for organizations now. But he joined us because we were going through a phase in our organization where our budget was kind of stagnant. And he wanted to interrogate the systems that we had in place to be able to support the growth of our budget. One of the ways he did that was not just by looking at our systems, but also stepping up, rolling up his sleeves, reaching out into his network to bring people from the philanthropic world, particularly in the finance sectors, to help build out our budgeting committee. So that for all the years before Jose, I just submitted a budget to the board approved it, no rigor. Jose said, no, we need some rigor on this budget, and I want to bring in some people from outside the organization who are not on the board to be able to review the budget, to give us feedback. And that process involved, I want to say, 4 to 6 meetings where I would come in, show the budget, explain what it is that I was using to justify my numbers, and the people on the ad hoc committees being like, no, we need more detail. You got to go back and do more work. And I'll be honest, it was frustrating for me, but this is what a professional board gets you. It gets you people who actually know what they're doing, who can actually help to make the processes, the systems, the checks and balances stronger. And that's really important because there's going to come a point in the life of the organization where the people who you're asking for support are going to really they're going to have higher expectations for what it is that you're presenting to them. So not only did Jose establish that process for reviewing the budget, he then rolled up his sleeves and wrote what was then the largest grant that we had ever received, along with another member of that committee. But he wasn't willing to do that until there was a budgeting process in place, because he knew that as a board member, he was putting his name literally on the line in the documents to say, I'm the treasurer of this organization. So if it's going to put out finances, I have reviewed them and they are rigorous, and I'm basically certifying that the things that this organization is saying, to my knowledge, are true. A professional board can do that. Your friends and family can't do that. The do-gooder can't do that. But people who know what they're looking at, know what they're doing, can do that. We're now at a stage where back in 2019, really, I guess 2020, in the beginning of COVID, our board had a conversation, because up to that point, our board had been 10 people, or the goal had been 10 people on our board for our entire history up to year number 20. And part of the challenge with having a 10-person board for us was that we couldn't actually develop a committee structure. And the committees are usually where the work of a nonprofit board happen. They don't happen in a committee of the whole. A committee of the whole is usually an opportunity for accountability, for storytelling, for reviewing things that happened, and ideally reviewing the work of the subcommittees. So we decided back in 2020, going into COVID, because we were going to become a virtual board. And at the time, we were thinking about being national. So we were open to having people from all over the country join the board. We decided to increase the number of board members that we would have to 20. And from 2020 to now 2025, I think right now we are at the largest board we've ever had, which is 18 people. Now, one of the things that happened is when I told all my friends that are nonprofit executive directors back in 2020 that I was working to try to build a 20-person board, all of them said, why on earth are you doing that? Why do you need so many people? How are you going to manage that? And my real answer was, we're going to find out. because I was doing something I hadn't done, and that there wasn't an organization of our size and budget that I could point to and say, well, they're doing this too. I could look at really big national organizations that had comparable or even larger boards, but nothing as small as us. At the time, our budget was around $500,000. And so it didn't make sense to them that we would be able to get 20 people to be a part of the work that we were doing and be governors of that work. Uh, I will not tell a lie. It has not necessarily been easy to get to 20. On the way to 18, we have probably lost like 5 or 6 board members along the way, replaced them with other folks, lost some folks, replaced some folks. So it's been an ebb and flow. But one of the things that's happened through this process is it's forced me to think about what do we really need from board members. And so moving beyond that individual letter of commitment that said, well, you're going to come to meetings, you're going to contribute $300, and you're going to help raise $2,700, and you're going to represent us to your friends and family. Like now it's thinking about myself more as a quarterback in partnership with my board chair being kind of the coach, being my coach, because I meet with her every single week, but working with the members of the board individually as kind of players on a football field. And the reality is you don't need a whole team of running backs. You don't need a whole team of wide receivers. You don't need a whole team of linebackers. You need different people playing different roles. Now, their baseline expectations, for example, sticking with that football metaphor, everyone's got to have cleats and a uniform and a number and their name on the back. But after that, everything else is a specialty. And what I found is by being open to having really seasoned professionals, right now we have a current and a former president of a foundation on our board. We have folks in finance, entrepreneurs, parents, bankers, all these kind of different careers that back at Friends and Family, there was no way I was thinking about these caliber of people joining our board because we didn't have any systems. And people in those kinds of jobs definitely expect you to have systems. So you're gonna be able to build the board that you're ready for based on where you're starting or where you are in the life cycle of your organization. And I think that's really important because sometimes I meet friends of mine that are executive directors and they're always complaining about their boards. And part of me, just because I'm kind of a jerk, want to be like, but the board you have is the board in big air quotes that you deserve, right? It's because if you are looking to people who are do-gooders to be fundraisers, you're going to be frustrated and you're not going to treat them well because you're going to be like, how come you're not helping me? Why are you just giving me more work as opposed to rolling up your sleeves and making things happen? Because they're do-gooders, bro. Because they're do-gooders, sis. They don't know how to do those things, but they do believe in your mission and they want to be able to be a part of a particular phase in your organization's life cycle that is critical to building the systems and the infrastructure, to be able to be a sounding board for your ideas, to be able to give you critical feedback and represent the work that you're doing to their network of do-gooders who might be donors, who might be volunteers, who might be future board members. And so every single relationship you enter into with people at a board level, one of the things that lots of executive directors and nonprofits resent is this idea that their board is their boss. When their board doesn't really have a clear vantage point into the work that they're doing because they're not doing the work. They're governing the work. They're overseeing the paperwork and the processes and making sure the controls are in place to be able to protect the organization, to be able to protect the clients, to be able to protect the community. And that's really different than a board that's going to help you grow. And I wish someone had told me that. I wish someone had told me that because for years, one of the things I'm least proud of is that there was a board meeting I had probably around year eight. And after that board meeting, there was a mass resignation of my board members. Why? Because they said, Mazi, we are not your volunteers. We're not your interns. We're not your interns. We don't work for you. We are the governing body that you report to. And it was a humbling and true moment that forever changed the way I interacted with my board because I thought like I was a man drowning, needing them to throw me a life preserver. but they were do-gooders. They didn't have a life preserver. They had positive words of affirmation to be able to encourage me to not give up and to say how valuable they thought what we were doing was. And I didn't understand that. I was like, but you're my board. You're supposed to help. You sign these papers and you said you were. And it's like, but they didn't have either they didn't have it or they didn't feel compelled to give it to us. I would like to believe they didn't have it because they were on our board. They were volunteers. And so I was just upset that they couldn't do a thing that they couldn't do. And I think that's another thing that people who build boards have to understand. People are not going to join your board and then suddenly become great at the thing you need. They actually need to be great at the thing you need before they join the board. And you need to be clear about what it is that you need. I was talking to a brother the other day, and he was talking about he's been running a for-profit for 5 years, and he just created a nonprofit, and he was building a board of directors. And he was telling me he had 3 people on his board. And I said, you know what you need to do? You need to determine 3 to 4 things that you need that you cannot get yourself, and find the people who can get you those things and ask them to be on your board. So I said, you need space. You need someone who has access to real estate, to space, to restaurants, to et cetera, but can get it for you for free. You need corporate sponsors. You need someone who works in a corporate space, who could throw you a corporate relationship, from the scraps of their table, and it not mean anything to them, but it'd be a big difference to you. You need someone who's focused on HR, because if you're going to grow this team, you need to be working on policies and procedures to be able to bring people in, train people, orient them, and keep them. So you need to think about what are the things that you need that you can't pay for yet, that someone at that young professional board can join you to be able to do. He has the friends and family board. So if his next phase is young professional, what are those particular skills that you need from folks? And then if you've got particular skills, but you need someone who's going to help amplify the work you're doing, who are those do-gooders in your community that will talk you up at city council meetings, talk you up on media appearances, talk you up on social media? Who are those people? And then once you get past having those people, who are the professionals that you need to have in place, who are going to bring not just relationships, not just access, but those particular skills that they're going to use on your behalf. And then I feel like where we are right now is just that position player board, where we've got really talented people who don't do everything, but some of them will roll up their sleeves and do sweat equity, come out to our events. Some of them will do introductions with powerful people in the city to be able to help us access resources. Some of them are parents who are able to give the perspective of parents of young people in our program and make sure that that voice is present at our board meetings and not just at our events. And each of those positions is valuable. Like most of us, I think, have seen a sport or two, and some of us have played. Every position is different, and every one brings its own set of skills, but they're all contributing to the same game, to the same end, which is to win. And in the case of a nonprofit, winning looks like being able to serve more people, looks like being able to have a deeper and more meaningful impact. It looks like being able to have the resources necessary to be able to track and demonstrate that impact, so that it's not just anecdotal information. It's not just you being able to say, well, I witnessed this, but how are you tracking it over time? How are you engaging alumni? What role is there for parents in your work? Is it on boards? Is it on committees? Is it at events as volunteers? And that position player board is going to be able to ask those critical questions that you're not even thinking about necessarily, because their job is to really see the whole picture, to see where it is that you're going, where it is you are, and what it is that you need, even if you don't know you need it yet. And that is the ultimate goal for a founder, is to get to a place where you have people around you who see what it is that you need that you don't even know that you need. And they're not gonna belittle you or make you feel bad about what you don't know. They're gonna lift you up and encourage you and point you in directions that are actually gonna be impactful. And that's what I wish for all of you. This is the whole reason why I'm doing this series, because I want you to understand, if you're frustrated with your board, it might just be where you are as an organization. You can't, when you're a kid and you want to be a grown-up, you can't just be a grown-up because you want to be. You got to go through the phases of development and literal growth in order to become what it is you want to be. And you can't, in theory, you could skip stages, but you don't need to skip stages. You need to build at each stage to get to the place you want to be. Like, you want to write an amazing book, but can you write a sentence? Can you write a word? Can you do your alphabets? Like, alphabets, then words, then sentences, then paragraphs, then chapters, then books. You got to go through all of the stages, and each one builds on the other. But you have to be able to see that you're building on each of the past stages. And so, these titles that I have are not the official joints. They're just what I think, which is a friends and family board, the young professional board, the do-gooder board, the professional board, and the position player board. I hope this is helpful. Feel free to drop comments in the chat. Like I said, like, subscribe. My name is Mazi Mutafa, Executive Director of Words, Beats, and Life, and this is Wednesday Wisdom, just me sharing my own experience. Hopefully it's helpful to you. If it is, like it, share it, comment. Peace.